Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to share with you a review and tutorial of the new Lunar Beauty Life's a Drag palette. So if you guys want to see my thoughts about this palette and how I got this eye look today, then just keep on watching. Alright, so here is the Life's a Drag palette from Lunar Beauty, which is Manny MUA's brand. It's the first product from his brand. These are his eyes on the palette. The palette is actually like really big, and in this palette you get 0.70 grams of product total. You get 14 shades, 11 matte shades, 1 satin shade, which is this blue shade, and then these 2 foiled shades in the center. So you actually get a ton of mattes in this palette, and you get a lot of variety with colors and neutrals too. And you also get a brush with this palette, which I haven't really seen lately, or especially with influencer collabs or products. I haven't really seen a brush with palettes. And I totally forgot to use this brush when I was doing my eye look today, but I have obviously used this brush. I used it to do a different blue eye look with this palette. So basically you have a flat side that you could use for like packing on color. Works really nicely. And then also a kind of flat shader brush, a little bit of a blending brush that's more flat, not something you really want to blend out color with your crease, but just like packing on and diffusing color out. I don't really use too many brushes like this, but I definitely use something like this to pack on color. So that's what I did the other day. So you do get a lot of product for $45. And inside you also have a mirror. It says be a queen. And I definitely wish that the mirror was bigger, like it took up the whole top of this pan, because I feel like it would be a lot more user friendly. You could still definitely use it, but I feel like they just took up a lot of space with all the decoration around the mirror. I wish it was full size, but other than that, the packaging is absolutely gorgeous. It like blends into my lens, but it's absolutely gorgeous. It's really reflective and just like a lot of detail went into it. And this is the outer packaging in case you guys are curious. So I'm gonna go ahead and move into all the swatches so you guys can see all the shades and I can let you guys know my thoughts about them. I'm gonna get into all of the swatches. I'm gonna start off with the first row, and the first shade is called Cake Face, and this is a matte pure white. So that is Cake Face. And then we have the shade Sickening, and this is a matte soft peach. This is my favorite transition shade in the palette. It kind of looks a little orangey. And then the shade Hunty is a matte cool tone brown. And then next we have the shade Beat. That's what's on my eyes today and in my inner corner. And I actually have a little bit as a lid topper or a lip topper in the center of my lips today. I really love that shade. Next, the shade Campy is a matte bright yellow, and I haven't used this shade as much. I did just blend out my crease to try out the shadow. I never really use yellow eyeshadows, but just swatching it and also blending it out, it does apply more powdery than some of the other mattes, and it also feels a little bit more powdery than the other mattes. And next we have the shade Pageant Queen, which is a matte purple shade. I actually really love this shade. Goes on really vibrant and very pigmented, really easy to blend out on the eye. And then next we have the shade Kiki, and this is what's in my inner corner, and this is the one that is the least pigmented in the palette. It goes on very sheer. So that's how it just swatches, and it's like all up in my inner corner, a little bit in my crease, and it really took a lot to build it up. I tried to use it as like a blending shade for my crease, and it just kind of turned into nothing because it's super sheer, so you really need to pack that shade on. Next, moving into the second row, the shade Shady is a matte black, and this is actually really pigmented, gorgeous black. And I think that Manny said in his video that this is like a buildable black, but this is definitely like a pigmented, very creamy black right off the bat. And then we have the shade Trade, and this is more of like a burgundy eggplant color. It's a matte that I really love to use with like pink tones, like reddish browns. And then we have the shade Mug, which is more of a deeper cool tone brown. Next, the shade Legendary is the other foiled shade. It is such a gorgeous color. It's so pigmented. So I'm running out of space, so I'm gonna move to the top of my arm, and this shade is Kai Kai. This is a like matte hot pink shade. Then we have the shade Snatched, which is like a matte burgundy color. Really love this shade as a transition shade too. And then we have the shade Fishy, which is like the main blue on my eye. And this is the only other one that has a different finish. This is more of a satin finish, so it's like in between a matte and a shimmer shade. So those are all 14 shades in the palette. There's a ton of different variations in the colors, and even with like all the transition shades, you do get a lot of different undertones and a lot of variety. And then of course a lot of color as well. The shades that are a little bit more difficult are definitely Kiki, like you can barely see that shade, and that's basically how it applies too. Like I really had to build it up on my eye, and it still looks a little bit sheer. I kind of like the look for this look, but I think I love teal, so I wish that was a lot more vibrant. Also the shades Campy and Kai Kai, just applying them on my eye and swatching them, they are a little bit drier and they have a little bit more fallout than a lot of the other matte shades in the palette, but everything else works really, really nicely. I never really used like a white matte shade, so I didn't actually use this one on my eye yet because I never really use white on my eye ever anyways, but everything else is like very easy to use, very easy to blend out. But that is everything for all of the swatches. I'm gonna go ahead and move into the tutorial so you guys can see how I got this eye look using the palette. So starting off, I'm going in with the shade Sickening, just this light brown transition shade. Just gonna apply that in my crease, and I'm just gonna carry it up a little bit higher. I'm gonna layer a couple of like the neutral brown shades as a base, and then I'll get into all of the colorful shades. And I'm gonna take a tiny bit of Hunty and I'm just gonna put that right on my crease, just a tiny bit to make it a little bit more neutral. Still want it to be warm, but not as orangey. And I'm just using the same brush. It's a Sigma E40. Then I'm gonna darken up the crease with the shade Mug. It's more of like a cool tone brown. It's actually a little bit more neutral. So just gonna pack that onto my outer corner. So I'm gonna go in with the shade Beat, which is this really icy pink shade. It's super pretty. It's kind of like silvery too. I'm gonna apply it with my finger first just so you guys can see the pigmentation. But I'm gonna apply it with a wet brush to really have it be like super foiled. So even on its own, once I blend it out a little bit more, that's just like a solid like 2-minute neutral eye with this palette, which I really like because you do have like an everyday look, a couple of different everyday looks that you can do with this palette. So I'm just gonna go in with a wet Morphe 124 and really layer that on so it looks like very, very pigmented and more metallic, because I really want like the shimmer to pop. So basically right now it just looks like every neutral eye ever. So I'm gonna leave it like this, and then I'm going to go in with some blue and blend that with like my other crease colors so that it actually ends up being like a lot more colorful. I like to pack on color with something a little bit more precise. This is a pencil brush. No, it's a smoky shadow brush, like basically a pencil brush that's a little bit thicker from Smashbox, and I'm going in with the shade Fishy. This is a shade, it has a little bit of a sheen to it. It's not exactly matte, but it also doesn't perform like a shimmer shade either, so you can wet it. I might wet it, we'll see. I've tried it wet before, but I might just kind of play with it like a matte for this look. I'm just packing this on to like the outer third of my eye, and then I am applying it also a little bit in my crease, and I'm gonna make this like new transition shade with the blue and the brown, and then I'm gonna go in with like a darker brown just to make it look like it's there on purpose and not just like I applied blue too high. I'm gonna add in more of the shade Mug, just like a little bit at a time because I don't want it to get too dark. I'm gonna apply one more layer of Fishy. And even with this more vibrant shade, like I have some fallout on my pan, but I don't really get fallout on my face. I have like my foundation and everything done already, so it hasn't been an issue. So I'm going in with this shade Kiki, and it's a matte teal shade, but this is also like a very light shade. Like it's not very pigmented. So I'm gonna really try to build this up. It's not gonna take too much effort, but it is very, very light compared to the other mattes in pigmentation. So I have packed this color on a lot, and it really, you do need to pack it on to build it up. I love the shade a lot, but I wish it was like more vibrant right off the bat, and that one has a little bit more fallout to it than like some of the other matte shades. So I'm just gonna go back in with the shade Beat and reapply it to the center of my lid so it really stands out, and then I want to kind of clean up the center of my eyes since like they're both kind of uneven with where I placed Fishy. So I just want that to be a little bit more defined. Just taking a little bit more of Kiki and just kind of defining my crease slightly more, just adding a little bit of that green to my crease color. Then for my lower lash line, I'm gonna start off with Sickening, and I'm just gonna apply that all over as a base. And then I'm gonna go in with the shade Fishy. I'm just gonna apply that to like the outer half of my eye. And then I'm just gonna finish off with the shade Kiki in my inner corner of my bottom lashes. Basically the exact same thing that I did to my top lashes. But I do in my inner corner, like my actual tear duct, I want to apply a little bit of beat. So I'm just gonna go back in with my brush and apply beat right there. I think that adds a lot to this look. Like it needs a little extra shimmer. All right, so I think I am all done with the shadows for this look. I'm gonna go ahead and do my mascara, lashes, and then just finish up with this review. All right, so here is the finished look for lashes. I'm wearing Risque from Coco Lashes, and then my lip color is Jouer Bear, which is like my go-to anytime I do any kind of colorful look or just like any look ever, because it's like one of my favorite nudes. And then I just applied a little bit of the shade B as like a lip topper on the center of my lips, just to add a little bit more of a pop. I really like that shade. Like you could wear it as a highlighter too. Maybe let me do that a little bit. My highlighter brush is kind of dirty, but I'm just gonna go in with a little bit of beat because I think it will match. Just like a very icy pink tone. Really, really love that shade. It's like my favorite shade in the palette. I really do wish that there was more shimmer in this palette, especially because he did a really, really great job with the foiled shadows. I could use so many more of them. So I hope in the future with his next palette, he adds more foils, because I think that would be really, really awesome with this formula especially. But overall, I really do like the palette. Of course, I used like the least pigmented shade as like one of the main focuses for this eye look, so I really needed to pack it on. And even with like packing it on, it's still like a very sheer color. So I really wish that shade was a lot more vibrant. I love teal, especially for summer. So other than that, like all the other shades are really, really pigmented. All the neutral matte shades in this palette are very, very creamy, very, very pigmented. I did find that Campy and Kai Kai are just a little bit more powdery. They're still very pigmented, but just a little bit more powdery compared to the other shades in this palette. Those are probably the shades that I'm going to use the least in this palette. All the other colors I'm going to wear a bit more, but I do wish that Kai Kai obviously was more pigmented. So overall, I really do like the formula and the shades in this palette. It is a mostly matte palette, so that is like my one thing that I wish was different in this palette, that there was more shimmers to play with, just to add to all the different looks, because I was trying to think of different looks just to use those two shimmer shades with, and I just wish we had a little bit more variety. But overall, really like the formula of the palette, other than like one or two shades that are a little less pigmented. And I also really like that for a colorful palette, it's not like super overwhelming with color. I know that there's been so many palettes that I've purchased because I really love the colorful shades, and then I get the palette and I just like don't know how to work with it, and I feel like I can only use it on certain occasions if I have like the time to like really be creative and stuff. But with this, like you don't have to commit to color every day with this palette. You can do like your everyday very simple eye looks, and then if you want to get more creative, you can play with the colorful sides too. So like this palette will get use no matter what kind of eye look you're going to be doing, which I really, really like, because a lot of times I just don't end up buying really colorful palettes anymore because I know I don't use them as often. But this is something I could definitely use for like everyday use. And then if I want to do like more color, of course, I have those shades to play with and layer and use like in very different ways. So overall, it is definitely a palette that is worth the $45. This is a huge palette. The packaging's gorgeous. The formula is really nice in this palette. I'm definitely excited to see what he releases next from his makeup line, whether it's another eyeshadow palette, different products, but I think overall this is a very, very good quality palette. That is everything for the Life's a Drag palette. Let me know if you guys purchased it in the comments down below. And if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.